When you want to have a website in Windows Azure, you do have a couple of choices. There's two main approaches that you can take with respect to how you might want to implement a website. You can certainly have a virtual machine and then host the site on that virtual machine. This gives you a fair amount of flexibility. You can set up the server really however you see fit, whatever your needs require, and then host the site on that virtual machine. But along with that comes the administration of not only the website, but management of the server itself. So if that maybe is not desirable or maybe just isn't a concern, then the other option you can have is to simply have a website, meaning we're just not concerned with the server. So we can just create a site, let Azure and all the subscription services that we want along with that site to basically be handled in the background. So it kind of looks like this. Obviously, we want to create our site, so there has to be a server that hosts the site somewhere. So if you go the route of the virtual machine, then that's your web server and you look after configuring it. But if we don't want to deal with that, then we can just remove the web server entirely and we simply create a site. So all of the hosting, all the configuration, all the management of the server, again, just goes away from our perspective and we just want a site. Now, if you do go that route, that's perfectly fine. You only have to deal with your site now. But always bear in mind, the server is still there. There has to be a server. So if you aren't using your own dedicated virtual machine to support that site, then the server itself, just be aware, is actually used to host not only your site, but other sites as well. So it simply means that, they're not going to create a virtual machine by default that's dedicated to just your site. So other websites will exist on that same server. That doesn't really affect your site, but it's just something to be aware of. If you want to, you can pay additional money for your own subscription, and you can have a dedicated site. But that's an option for you to decide for yourself. Now, when it comes to creating the sites themselves, you have several options. You can create just a static website, basic HTML, and that, of course, is up to you. There's several popular pre-built application type of sites, Drupal, WordPress, a number of them, in fact. And when you get into creating your site, you'll see that there are just dozens upon dozens of available pre-built application ones. And there's also custom websites, of course. Anything that you might be familiar with in terms of your design environment, ASP.NET, PHP, Node.js, anything along those lines is perfectly fine. When it comes to uploading your code to the site, you can use FTP or Web Deploy. Those are already available by default. And you can always load from a repository as well if you prefer, such as TFS or Git. So you've got a number of options as to how you're going to deploy this, how you're going to create it, how you're going to manage it. But in either case, whether you go with the virtual machine or just the website, you do have a number of options at your disposal when it comes to creating websites in Windows Azure.